right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 18 of Eat, Drink, Write, an Urban Fantasy Whiteboard. Today, we are going to talk about query letter writing.
Yes.
Basically, that's the most important thing you'll ever write is the query letter. So we'll talk about that. But first things first, how was your week?
Oh, how was my week? I feel like the days are blurring together at this point.
Me too.
I think last week I mentioned I was trying to work on one of my projects and then I switched because I wanted to work on a different one. Well, now I've switched again.
Back to the first or to a third?
A third. But it's the second book in the series that I just finished the first book of.
Okay.
So it's the one that I'm carrying.
I'm beta reading for you.
Yes. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
No, you're welcome. I'm very excited because I had only read the very, very beginning several drafts ago. So I'm really excited to read this.
Yeah, especially now since it's out for query. Like, it's pretty much where it's going to be until I maybe have an editor look at it or something like that. So no, it's pretty good. So I'm working on the second book of that. Well, I say working on, I'm quote unquote working on it. I'm coming up with the concept. I'm doing the brainstorming that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So, no, you froze.
Yeah, you froze too. Yeah, we are having internet problems, guys. I've switched over to my hotspot on my phone. This is 2 weeks in a row that we've had issues. So
yeah.
Quarantine, yay!
Woo!
Okay. So we're gonna be talking about query lettering. You were telling me how your week had gone.
I was telling y'all that I started on a third project.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm mostly I'm brainstorming it, like we talked about last week, is where I was, I think, when we froze. So, so my week it's been okay. I'm a little all over the place. I think I'm starting to get more crazy as the quarantine goes on, but I'm here. We're at.
I'm a little grumpy today. I don't know why. It's a beautiful day outside. It's sunny. In fact, I considered doing this out on the deck, but I don't know how the internet would reach out there.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't like to do it on my little screen on the laptop. I like it on my big screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to figure out or wrangle Daddy into helping me get all that stuff outside. So at some point, I probably will. My week was busy. I've had a lot to do. It's always at the end of the month. I have a lot to try to do to get the billing done and all of that kind of thing. So it's been really busy. I'm a little grumpy. I'm waiting on my SBA loan to come through for my law firm so I can pay my people.
Yeah.
It's just been a little stressful money-wise, but I finally got paid by the state, so that's a good thing.
Woo!
Yeah, they've paid me both February and March at the same time. So
wow.
I went from having nothing going, how am I going to pay myself today, to having 2 months worth of income for everybody. So now I can make payroll. Right. I'm waiting on the SBA loan to come in, and it's been rough. So I'm a little grumpy today.
So what are you drinking?
I am drinking wine, and it's not even 5 o'clock, so it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Absolutely.
But look at this glass that I'm drinking out of.
Oh, that looks like something that you painted.
I did. I made this up in Helen when we went. We always go up to Helen, Georgia for our spring break when our youngest, who's still in the K through 12, is on spring break. And they had a pottery making place up there, and all of us went and made things. Your father made a Georgia UGA mug because he's a big Georgia Bulldog fan. Someone made you a deviled egg tray. I think it might have been Daddy.
I think Dad did that, yeah.
And then I made this wine glass and painted these really cool designs on it. I love it. It's purple. I don't know if you can tell that on the screen or not.
A little bit, yeah.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a red tea, a rooibos tea, which I think I've had before on this podcast. So it's one of my favorites. It's a go-to.
I have not tried red tea. I'm going to have to try it. You keep talking about that.
You might have, actually. So we used to go to, what's it called? Tradewind Coffee, whatever. Yeah. And I got an African Sunset rooibos tea there.
That's a red tea?
It is, yeah.
Oh, I love that tea.
Yeah. So
Okay, so
you have had red tea.
I like red tea. That's one of my favorite teas there at the Tradewinds Coffee Company
I think so.
in Decula, Georgia. It's a wonderful little place. We go there and write a lot.
Yeah.
What are you eating?
I made salami and cheddar quesadillas.
Wow.
Sounded great, so that's what I did.
Fancy schmancy today. Daddy made steak for lunch, so I'm just having a snack. I'm having, I don't know if you can't really tell what these are in the picture. They're pepper stuffed olives. I get these up in Helen also there's an olive oil store up there. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite things to do. I'll have to post some recipes for the olive oil stuff, but they have these olives that are stuffed with peppers, and I absolutely love them.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna let you know that you are going in and out.
Okay, yeah, you keep freezing too, so hopefully this will work. And if we freeze again, we'll restart it up, guys. We're sorry.
Yeah.
I have some jokes. That seems to be my thing.
Is this gonna be your weekly thing now? I do interview questions, you do jokes.
I think so, because they're funny.
All right.
Or maybe not funny, but I think they're funny.
Hit me with it.
How many writers does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
One, but he will change it again, put the first light bulb back, smash that effing light bulb, and then change it again.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And then my second joke is Penguin Books seems to only publish extremist literature. For them, everything is just black and white.
Oh gosh. I don't know what I expected from that. Like I really should have known, but no, that's my answer is oh gosh.
Yeah, that's your mother.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I had said, query letter is that's really the most important thing you'll ever write in your entire career is the query letter, because it is your first bite at the apple with an agent.
Great.
I have 4 basic parts to a query letter, which then you break out and go into detail on. So I'll just list the 4 basic parts, and these are in no particular order. And in fact, there's disagreement on what order these should be in. But number 1, you've got the basics, which is the genre, the category, the word count, the title. And then you have your hook and the description of your story. And then you have a bio note about yourself. And then you have your thank you and your closing. And it should be no more than 1 page.
Yeah.
So you had done an excellent job of breaking this down into a really, in fact, I think we probably ought to put this into a format to put onto our website for people as just a general, these are the steps, the formula to writing a query letter, because that's very helpful, I think, to people. And I would like to preface this by saying neither one of us have been published, so I have submitted a whole lot more manuscripts than you have and been totally rejected. So I may not be the one to be teaching people about query lettering, but we're not really teaching, we're talking about it. We're discussing what everybody says.
Absolutely. And I do want to say I did get a lot of this information off of it's Writer's Digest advice, and it was actually written by Brian Klims, who runs the writers conference that we do every year in Atlanta's Writers Digest workshop, I think is what it's called.
Yes.
And we do that every year in March, and he runs it, and he actually does query critiques, which he's done for both of us. And he does a great job. So a lot of this information I did get from him, and I trust his word and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, he is amazing. In fact, somewhere in my notes, I have a shout out to him. We pay for that. We go to that class every year, and it is tremendous with all the different topics that it has, and we have the chance to pitch and all of that. But I did have that we pay for a class in query writing every year. And I think even if you've done a successful query, it's so helpful to have someone critique it, even if you're already published, even if you think you already know how to write. It's always nice to have that second pair of eyes look at it. And so, yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, he is amazing. So go ahead and jump into the basic parts that I had said. You've broken it all down, so let's get to it.
Awesome. Yeah, so how do you write your query letter? And, I'm going to start off by saying I had no idea how to write a query letter. I could write a book, obviously I finished my manuscript, could not write a query letter to save my life. You know, I had you read them for me and you were like, no, but I don't know how to fix it kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, me neither. So you start your letter by addressing the agent that you're querying. And I think we could probably do an episode on researching agents. So I won't go too far into that.
I think so too.
But once you find an agent that you want to query or that you're interested in querying, make sure you call them by name. So when you are starting your query letter, make sure you say, Dear Nicole, if that's her name, and make sure you don't just say something general like to whom it may concern or Dear Agent, because that's, I mean, it's less personal. And if you use their name, you show that you've done your research on that agent. You've shown that you've at least looked into them a little bit, and you're not just copy and pasting one letter to the next agent or whatever.
Yeah, on that point, I think before you even start your query letter, you do your research on your agent.
Absolutely.
And you said Dear Nicole, but it might be better to do Dear Miss Smith. And you'll learn that by going to their social media and their information. You'll see whether they're relaxed or whether they're more, I hate to say uptight, but because that you need to know how to address them. Is it, hey Nicole, or is it Miss Smith?
Right. No, that's a good point. I was speaking like just in terms of like a general example or whatever.
Yeah, as opposed to Dear Agent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but that's a really good point, because I think on both of my queries, I definitely said Dear Miss whoever, as opposed to calling them by their first name. So.
But I think some of them, like if you meet them in person, especially, they may say, call me Nicole, or,
right.
So take all of that with a grain of salt, but don't just say Dear Agent, to whom it may concern. Hey, what's up, Nicole?
No, I think that one would get them. I think they would stop and be like, hey.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. Oh, and gosh, we always hear that writers think they're being very clever and trying these different ways. I'm going to print the query letter on pink paper and they'll notice me.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's not the way to stand out. But anyway, okay, next point.
So make sure you identify what you're selling. And there's kind of, like you said, there's debate about where to put this in your query letter. So, this is things like your genre, your word count, and your working title. And at that conference that we go to, I mean, we listened to a ton of different agents talk about this. And some of them were like, no, absolutely don't put it at the beginning, put it at the end. And others were like, no, I want to know exactly what it is. I want to know how many words, and I want to know what genre it is before I even get into reading about it.
Because what if okay, so say you're an agent that does Western fiction, and this is a historical romance.
Right.
You don't even want to waste your time reading that letter if it isn't even in the proper genre. And, they say you would be surprised by how much people don't research what they're looking for and send them a bunch of stuff that wastes their time. So there is controversy as to whether you start off with that or whether you try to just hook them right away with the story.
Yeah, definitely. I've always put mine at the beginning. I don't know about you. I mean, I've only queried 3 times, so, there's that. But I've always put mine at the beginning. I feel like getting the word count out there is probably beneficial a lot too, just because, if you're at 100,000 words and your genre is supposed to be 70,000, you're way over the word count.
Right.
Your agent's probably going to want to know that.
Right.
So, it depends on the agent.
It's totally subjective. And we can't say what's right and what's wrong, because like when we go to that workshop in Atlanta, they stand up in front of us in a panel and tell us contradictory things. And so there is no right and wrong. It's luck of the draw sometimes, but you do research and that helps you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. But just make sure that you have that somewhere in there, I guess, is your genre, your word count, and your working title.
Yes.
Next that I have is cut to the chase. Don't waste your opening paragraph of your query letter introducing yourself. You want to hook your agent right away. You want to get into their heads. You want them to want to know about your story. And if they're like reading about, oh, well, you did this for your career and you went to these conferences and whatever, don't do that at the beginning. That's not going to hook them. You want to get them engaged right away.
Right. More on the hook that I have.
Yeah.
The best hooks, and I think we'll probably do a mini or maybe even a full episode on the hook itself, because I think there's an art to it.
I think
but
so. Yeah.
the best hooks have some kind of twist or element that helps your work stand out, because, you know, all storylines and plot lines are similar. So, you know, the superhero who comes of age and gets their powers when they, you know, turn 16, or that is the same thing. So you've got to make that hook show how different yours is. What is different that's not been done
Right.
about yours?
Yeah.
And I've got an example of a hook that I'll read after we get done. It's interesting. So I'll read that in a little bit.
Cool. The next I have is sell your manuscript. And I have kind of like a lot of bullets on this one because I think it's arguably the most important part of your query.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of where your summary comes in. And you want to summarize your book, and you write this section the same way that you would write the copy, like the back cover copy. What would go on the back of your book jacket if you're trying to sell it? What's going to make your reader interested in reading it?
And did you, in your research for this, learn whether you're supposed to, like in your synopsis, you have to tell the whole story? In a query, are you trying to leave it hanging, or do you tell them the whole story?
You definitely want to leave it hanging. You want the person that you're querying to be like, oh, well, but what happens next? I got to know this story. And the same thing with your readers. Like, if this is on the back of your book, you don't want to give away the ending.
Right.
So you want to leave that question of, well, do they make it? Do they do it? How does this book end? I want to know. I have to read it. So definitely leave it open-ended, I think. Yeah, and like you said, very different from a synopsis.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
So yeah, this would be like just 1 or 2 paragraphs that sell the heart and soul of your book. And again, don't give away your ending. I think that's huge, because if you give away the ending, your reader's no longer hooked, and they're like, well, I already know the whole story. I don't want to read this anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then you want to spend most of your time on this section. Like, make sure it's exactly how you want it to be before you send your query letter, because this is what is going to catch your agent's eye. Like, you're going to have your hook, but then you want your summary to also be like, this sounds like a great story. I want to read how this story plays out. And, you know, there are lots of different ways to go about this. I sucked at writing my first query. I know I did. It was
I still suck at writing queries.
They're so hard. They're so difficult. But this is definitely the section that I spent the most time on, for sure.
Yeah.
So in this body paragraph, I've got a few questions that you should probably address in your summaries as you're going through your book, just kind of key elements that your agent's going to be looking for when you're writing your summary. So this would be, who is your main character and protagonist? What are their names? Who are they? Why do we care about them? What do they do? I think I have some notes that I can use in a different episode to kind of go over that. But just, who is your main character? What conflict is she or he going through? So you want to make sure you get the problem out there, because if you don't know the problem, no one's going to care about the story.
Yes.
What are the choices that she or he must make? There are always going to be choices in a story. That's why you're reading about this character. Like, what are they going to do with this problem?
Yeah.
How are they going to solve it?
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, it's like juicier if they're, high stakes. You know, you gotta have your high stakes in it. So I want to know why those choices are insane, and, you know, how is it going to end up?
Okay.
What does your character want? Why does he want it? And what keeps him from getting it? And I think that kind of encompasses your conflict of your novel. It kind of gives you a sense of what the story is about, whether you give out your ending or not. And I think that those are key elements that you need to have in the summary that you're trying to sell your book with.
Okay.
So next, I am moving on from like the content of your novel and more towards, you know, explain why you've chosen to query this specific agent. When salespeople go out to make a sale, they attempt to learn everything they can about a client before making their pitch. The more you know about a person, the more you can kind of tailor your pitch to that person that you're trying to get to buy your book. So, you know, when you're pitching to an agent, it's important to know a little bit about them, like what other books they represent. It's good to mention what other books your book is like. I know when we were at that conference, because when we were at that conference and I was pitching, I completely forgot to mention the books that they were like, but the agents were immediately like, what other books are like yours? And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to, yes, okay. And it's the same thing for a query. Like, you want to make sure that the agents know what kind of market you're getting into, you've done your research, you know where your book is going to go.
Yeah, they want to know that you know the market. They want to know, like I had one agent that I pitched to, and she's like, oh, you've definitely done your research. When I was telling her, I think it was Frickin' Fairies that I was pitching, because it was similar to this one book because of the humor. It was similar to this book because of this, and it was similar to this book. And she's like, she liked that I understood those books. I understood where they were in the market and how mine had parts of each of those.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, because then, I mean, I have another point here where it's like, if your book isn't similar in a genre or scope to the agent, like if your agent does not represent books that are similar to yours, you're probably querying the wrong agent.
The wrong person, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be an agent for you, and you probably won't get a response. I feel like that's just a way to show that you didn't do your research kind of thing. So, and I think, like we've said, I think another episode on researching agents would be good.
I think so.
Again, this kind of like allows you to connect with the agent that you're querying, and shows them that you've done your research. Writers,
yeah, along those lines, if you've met this agent at a conference, or if you were referred by one of their existing clients, those are all things that get your feet in the door. And to me, that should go first, but I know other people disagree with me, but I want this agent to know right off the bat, hey, I met you at the conference and we talked about this, so that they can place me with what I've got written down.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't have to be first. It can be last or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it should be first. And that's just my opinion, but there are people that disagree with me all the time.
No, fair enough. I agree with you for once. No, I think it should go first, because I feel like, well, I say that, but again, you know, I've only queried 3 times and ever. So, but in all of my queries, I said, hey, it was nice to have your time at the conference where we discussed this, blah, blah, blah. And it let them know we met at that conference, and they requested my work. So I think.
And sometimes they'll say something like, one of them that I'm queried to right now, she had mentioned, because you're not supposed to do this. I should say that right off the bat. You're not supposed to mention other works, but this series that I am writing, Frickin' Fairies, it goes to Dern Dragons, it goes to Greedy Goblins. That to me is a selling point. And I mentioned that, even though they say you're not supposed to, but she loved it. She's like, oh, I can see the marketability of this, marketability of this. And there is an infinite number of books that I can do with those, and she could immediately see there's a future with this potential client. Now, I haven't heard from her, so I don't know that she really wants it, but she did when I pitched it to her, liked that. But one of the first things that Brian Clem told me was, do not mention any other book. You are concentrating on this book. So
right.
Rules are
because then you're supposed to concentrate on right. Yeah, because like you said, you concentrate on this book, and then you concentrate on next books later, and you can pitch those books after. But I think, like you said, I think yours is a unique case where it will help you, because it's like, oh, I can see where this series can go.
Yeah.
And it has potential in the market because of these titles, kind of thing.
Yeah, the agent liked it, allegedly, when I pitched it. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, no, definitely. So next it says mention your platform. And platform, I think we can also do an episode on.
I think so too, definitely.
Yeah, that's things like, your Twitter, if you have a Twitter and an Instagram, Facebook pages, if you write a blog, especially if you have a following, you definitely want to mention that. Yeah. I think agents really want to know that their clients could potentially market their own books. Yeah. Theoretically, they'll have a market team that'll help you out too, but they want to know that you're invested as well. So they want you to be able to connect with your readers and get out there.
If you've got a following, then you've got an instant base that are ready to buy this book. And so that is huge for an agent, and then subsequently the publisher to know.
Right.
Yeah, because that's their bottom line. They want to sell books. And if we have 5,000 followers, which apparently isn't all that much on Twitter these days, but
yeah, why not?
then, and I've been working on our Eat, Drink, Write podcast platform on Twitter because there's so many wonderful writers out there. And I think that a lot of them would love our podcast. And it's just amazing how many people there are out there that I really do want to do some episodes on some of these indie authors out there. They're amazing.
Oh, that would be good. I think we really should do that. I've seen a hashtag recently called Review May. So I think it's like a play on words with like Review Me. And it's for like indie, because April was indie author. Yeah, indie April. Yeah. And now there's a hashtag that I've seen going around called Review May, and so you go and you review indie authors for their work and stuff. I think that would be good to do. I think that'd be fun.
I would love to do that. We need to do that. We'll do that for sure, guys. And if you want your particular book, because there's so many out there, email us and you'll have first priority.
Absolutely. If you guys email us, we will definitely read your work. That would be awesome. That'd be a lot of fun.
So I totally went off on a tangent there. Oh, we were talking platform. Okay.
I mean, it was relevant. And technically, we both went off topic. It's fine. But also, do you speak at conferences? That would be good to mention too. Having a platform can only enhance your reach of an audience. So that enhances your opportunity to sell books, which is what we talked about. If you have a large if you have 5,000 followers, then you have a percentage of people who are going to want to buy your book, just because you have a Twitter and because you connect with those readers.
I know Facebook is not easy to work on, but we both have a writer friend who is doing a jam up job on Facebook. Sandra Daniels, she is a romance writer. Check her all out. She is on Facebook, and she's got a great presence on Facebook, which is very hard to build. We have a Facebook site too, and it's very difficult to build it up. If you want to go look at someone who is really working hard on their Facebook platform, go check out Sandra Daniels. She's amazing romance writer.
Great. If you don't have a platform, though, don't worry about it, and don't mention that you don't have one unless you are actively building it. So if, I put in there, I put in my query letter, I have started preliminary efforts towards building my platform. And Brian Clem seemed to think that was a good idea, so I've always left it in my query letters.
Okay.
And I am building my platform. Granted, I only have 250 followers, I think, as of today. So,
that's not bad.
No, it's not. It's still a lot of people.
You just started it.
Yeah, no, I have. And also, like, the writing, I say this, I think, every week at this point, but the writing community on Twitter is insane.
They are.
They're so much fun to interact with, and there are writing questions that they post every day that are fun to answer and just get you thinking about writing and that kind of thing. So
it was funny. I had posted about a post on a writer's lift about our podcast because I think it's really helpful to other writers to listen to us talk. And I called us two slightly snarky women, and he's like, only slightly? Talk to me when you're, full blown. And so I'm like, hey, we're working on it. And he's like, well, that's all I can ask. But that's the Twitter community. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, they're great. Interacting with them it's fun. It's just fun. Normally I hate working on social media. I'm not a social media person. But Twitter is like actually interactive, and you get to talk to other writers who are going through the same struggles that I'm going through, and we're all going through. And they'll ask questions, and you can ask questions and be like, I have an issue with this. How do you guys go about it? And people are so great about answering it.
They are. They're amazing. And sometimes they'll ask a question, and I'm like, oh, I know this one, and I'll answer. We are all there for each other, and it's the coolest thing. I had no idea this community was out there until we went to the Writer's Digest in Atlanta, and they pretty much said you need to do a platform. If you don't have one, go ahead and start now. And I was like, okay. And I have just been so excited by what's out there.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, we should definitely do an episode on platform.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then I have one last point when you're actively writing your query letter is study other successful query letters. There are tons of examples out there. I did this myself. We'll see how it works out for me. But having a template to just start from made me feel grounded.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when I first started writing query letters, I was like, okay, well, I can kind of look up the rules of it and kind of just try, and it sucked. It was terrible. I didn't feel good about it. I absolutely hated what I wrote. So I was like, okay.
What is your template? Because I meant to ask you this because when we went to our writer seminar and we were both preparing to pitch and work on our queries and all of that when we were at the hotel and drinking and eating and having our good time, you sat down and wrote me a query letter for frickin' fairies, and it was brilliant. And you said, oh, I just followed the template. What is the template?
Well, so funny story. I expected to be able to come home over the past month, and my notebook where my template is actually at home.
Oh, I have it.
You do have.
I have it.
So it's in there somewhere. Feel free to go through it.
Okay.
Feel free to go through that whole notebook. All of my writing notes are in there.
Mind if I put the template on our website for our listeners?
No, go for it. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I remember writing your query. I also remember I was a little tipsy.
We were drunk. Yeah, we had a good time that weekend. It's such a fun mother-daughter weekend that we do every year.
It is. It's amazing. And drunk query writing was great.
And it was brilliant. I mean, I went back and read it thinking, oh God, this is going to be so bad. And it was good. It was really good.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, well then I'll post the template because you said, that's what you said. You said, this is all I'm doing. I'm following the template. And I'm like, I need this template. What is this magical template?
It is a formula, and my brain works so much better with formulas, which I think is also why I'm a plotter. I do so much better with structure. Mm-hmm. So if I'm given a structure, I can follow that structure to a T. So I think that's what helped me a lot while I was drunk writing your query letter. I just followed a template and I was able to get that across. And there are, in that notebook, I have a lot of, it might be spread out across pages. So,
okay.
But yeah, we can talk about that in a minute. But
okay.
Yeah, I follow a template and it just gives me a place to start because like I had no idea what I was doing. So giving me a template, I'm like, okay, here's like this and it should sound like this and this, then it should be like this and this is what this part should sound like. And it gave me a starting point to start with my own book. So yeah.
I'll definitely go through that because I need it myself. And if I'm sure our listeners are like, I want this magic template because what you put together, even though we were drunk and maybe because we were drunk, it was really good.
Cool.
I mean, it's a query letter. Yeah, I've had 2 glasses of wine since our internet has crashed a couple times. I've gone and gotten additional glasses. So
yeah.
I know you have to go to work, so you're drinking tea, but well, it's still not late enough. It's still not 5 o'clock, but
it's afternoon. It's fine.
We're actually recording this on Friday, so and it's
you're good.
Sunny outside. One point before we move on to your don'ts about writing query letters.
Yeah.
Regarding your bio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the bio is for listing all of your accomplishments and all of your published works. Okay, I am unpublished. But what I have read is that we are still a completely respectable writers. Just because we aren't published doesn't diminish us as writers. We're getting judged on our story, not our past accomplishments. Sure, it's great if you do have those past accomplishments because then they've got something to hang their hat on. But it doesn't kill us because we don't have anything published.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I actually have a short story published, but it was published years ago, so I don't ever even mention it.
Right.
I don't even think you can get it. Was an online magazine and it's now defunct, and I don't think you can even get a copy. So I'm not even going to mention the short story that I had published, although I thought it was a great short story. But I would rather talk about, they want to get to know us. They want something a little nugget about us. You know, they're reading thousands of these things. And so something about us that gives a human side to this piece of paper that they're looking at is helpful, whether we've published or not published. We're still respectable authors,
Absolutely.
I think.
No,
And
I think that's a really good
don't
point.
forget it.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, because I feel like, well, definitely me, because like I'm also not published, obviously. And I am always like, well, so the next, you know, the person who is published is obviously going to stand out more. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think, especially as I'm like following agents on Twitter and stuff, like they're all like excited about, oh, this book sounds really cool, and I don't know who this person is, but it sounds great, so I'm going to do it and whatever. So
yeah, they're looking for that story. And the query letter is all about getting your story idea to them so they can be excited about it too. You're excited about it or you wouldn't have written it. And so you got to get that excitement over to them in this 1-page letter, and which is daunting. I have 1 page, a few paragraphs to try to convince this agent that I am the one. It is daunting. So you do have a bunch of don'ts about query letter writing.
I do. So the first one, don't be arrogant. So basically, don't say anything in your query like, my manuscript is going to be a bestseller. It's great. It's you're going to sell it. I'm going to be #1 on the bestseller list. Don't say that.
Well, also don't say, I would be really happy if we just sold 1.
Yeah, don't do that either. That'd be pretty rough.
Yeah, so don't be arrogant, but don't be too humble either.
Yeah. Be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Don't say something like, you know, you'd be lucky to represent my book because it's so good. That would just, I feel like that's a quick way to just get your manuscript set on fire. Like that's probably going to end up in the trash. So don't, you know, be careful about how you word things. Like, be excited about your book, but don't make it seem as though, you know, they already know what it's about, you know?
Right.
Save any bragging for your credentials, like we were talking about. If you've been published, if you have experience, if you go to conferences, if you do all that, you know, save all that for your credentials. And again, be humble about it. Just be, you know, this is what I've done to further myself in my career, my writing career. You know, whatever. Don't be like, you'd be lucky to have me as a client. Don't include your age, which honestly I'd never really thought about before.
I mean, I don't know why you would, but I never thought about why you wouldn't.
So I have, you know, there's no real upside to including your age. It can, so in fact, it can often create an unintentional bias and make it more difficult for you to sell your book. So if you're 26 and you're, you know, you're a young writer, maybe they might be biased. Oh, she's very young, whatever. Or likewise, if you're 67 and you're writing a book about a 22-year-old.
Oh, she's gonna die soon. She'll only be good for 1 book. I've had
Wow, I'm glad I'm not 67. Damn.
Usually you're drinking with me, so, and now I'm bright red. I can see on the.
Wow, my mother, my God.
Okay, move on. Let's move on.
Anyway, don't include your age. It can create a bias, like my mother killing people already. Damn. So next, don't tell agents that you value their time. You can thank them for it. You can give them thanks for their consideration of your manuscript, but don't tell them that you valued their time. Don't tell them that you know that they're really busy. They already know that they're busy. They don't want to read that in your query. So basically, you could use that sentence to get across another sentence about your manuscript. Don't say, hey, I know you're really busy, but thank you so much for reading this. I know that you have like 1,000 queries that you're reading, blah, blah, blah. That just takes up space. Just, you know.
It doesn't provide anything. For your, about your work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I said, thank them for their consideration, but that can be done at the end. Like the very
you've only got 1 page, so geez, keep that stuff out of there. You want that page for your story.
Definitely. Let's see here. Don't include writing credits that aren't meaningful. So, you know, unless you've had books published through a publishing house before or have had something appear in something prestigious like the New Yorker, it's best not to say anything.
So me not mentioning that book I mean, that story is probably a good idea then.
Yeah, probably so. And I think, especially because you said, you know, you probably couldn't find it again.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, just leave it out. And it doesn't matter. Like the agents aren't going to be like, oh, like you said, this person's never been published before.
Right.
I'm not even give time to their query. Like that's not how they think. They want to just find a good story
Right.
and then move on from there. However, if you're writing like, which, you know, we're in urban fantasy or whatever, but if you're writing something that's relevant to some experience you have, so say your book is set in France and you've been to France specifically for research for this book, that might be decent to mention.
Or because I'm a lawyer, if I wrote the lawyer crime like John Grisham does, that would be extremely relevant to put in there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if one of your main characters was a lawyer, that might also be a good thing to mention. You know, I wrote this book with the main character that's a lawyer because I am also one and blah 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 blah.
Right.
Whatever. I don't know. But yeah. So anyway, don't include writing credits that are not meaningful. And then I think that's all I had.
Okay. Well, I want to read this example of how to hook your agent.
Okay.
It is from the Da Vinci Code.
Oh.
All seen the movie, read the book, some of us.
Yeah.
So here is this it's a 1-paragraph blurb. It's the hook.
Okay.
Robert Langdon is an American academic and an expert in the symbols of the ancient world. While on business in Paris, he is summoned to the scene of a grisly murder in the Louvre, where he is the main suspect. He must race across Europe, one step ahead of the police chasing him, to solve the murder and prove his innocence. In the process, he uncovers arcane messages hidden in the world's best-known artworks, solves ancient puzzles, and ultimately discovers secrets about Jesus that could bring down the Catholic Church.
Wow.
Isn't that excellent?
Good. Yeah, no, that's great.
What a great hook. And the words are carefully chosen. Mm-hmm. There's no extra words in there.
Yeah.
Every word means something and lends something to that hook. And it, like you had said, it leaves it on a question. Well, what happens? How is it going to bring down the church? What is this secret about Jesus? You know, how interesting is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was an example. And then I wanted to point out there are some resources out there. Query Shark.
I've heard of it, but I kept seeing it while I was researching this, and I didn't click on it or do that or anything. But yeah, what is that?
I've known about it for years. It's an agent who critiques query letters, and even if you're afraid to submit your own, there are hundreds where he has critiqued them. I don't know if it's a he or she, but that person has critiqued, and so you can see this isn't good because, and this doesn't work because, and it helps you go, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So Query Shark, and then you can always pay for a class like we do at the Atlanta Writing Workshop that we go to. Yeah. There's lots of those out there. And my last tip is to write drunk. Huh. You did the best query that I've ever read, drunk. So there's got to be something to that. That's my story. I'm holding to it.
Hey, I haven't gotten an agent with my queries, so who knows?
Did you write it drunk?
No. but yours hasn't either. Okay, let's just
that's true.
Throw that out there.
That's true. So, do you have a what is it called?
Man, I wish I had a bunch of wine.
I know. I wish you were with me.
I do have an interview question.
Interview question. That's it. What is your interview question?
What's the hardest part of writing a query for you specifically?
Oh, Lord. It is boiling down this 100,000 word manuscript into a 1-page letter that's supposed to somehow hook this agent.
Right.
It is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because as a writer, and I think all writers suffer from this, everything I put into that novel is important.
Yes.
how do I leave out these huge chunks of subplots that are so important to get down to this little paragraph that's supposed to, it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, that's the hardest part.
Yeah. For me, it's more, I hate writing my own bio. I don't know why. I just struggle so hard with talking about myself. And is this a good thing to say? Is this
interesting?
Should I leave that out? And should I even say that I'm a scientist? Probably not. Like what? Blah 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 blah. So I just
I don't have a problem with that.
Ugh, it's terrible.
No problem there.
Oh,
So you don't have a problem with taking your huge manuscript and somehow boiling it down to this little tiny hook?
I have a template.
That's crazy. Well, I'm going to look up that template, guys, and I am going to post it because I think it's magic. So we'll see how it goes. Well, that was a neat episode. I think that's very important for lots of us, and I'm looking for my outro again. I do this every week.
Every week.
Thanks for listening. We do still have some merch out there. Email us if you're an indie author and you want us to read your stuff. We will.
Yes,
we'll buy it, read it, and talk about it. So
absolutely.
Email us at eat.drink.write.podcast@gmail.com. Our website is eatdrinkwritepodcast.com. Pretty much you can contact us there. You don't have to worry about remembering our email or anything like that. All of our social media is there. There's links to everything.
Yeah.
We're now doing this on YouTube with video because we're both writers in quarantine. As things open, we have to decide whether we're going to keep videotaping or whether we're going to go back to strictly audio only. So I'd like to hear from our listeners as to which they prefer. Do they like to see us? Does it add depth to our podcast? I don't know. So let us know your thoughts and ideas about things to talk about. We need myth and monster ideas for the last day of every month. Visit our Patreon. We would love to have your help. At some point, once we get patrons that help support us, we will have special bonus things for them. I'm thinking the mugs that have our logo on them, things like this worksheet, this template that I'm going to post would be something that would could become something exclusively for our patrons to help them, to thank them for supporting us. So come help us, come listen to us. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.